Hi, we were talking about the pregnancy, and I spoke about how uh, pregnancy and the traumas which are there could impact the growth of the child. Right now, I'm taking you through an article that and a research that has come up and which really completely changed the way I was looking at things. And so, Meta Health says that a trauma happens. Something happens in our life that is unexpected, dramatic, isolating, and we have no plan how to deal with it. What was interesting in this topic, which is all about can the legacy of trauma be passed down the generation, which is an article which is, I put the link down by bbc.com. And there is a research which is done by Isabel Mensoi. She's a professor in neuroepigenetics at the University Zurich, and her lab is pioneer in the new field of transgenerational epigenetic inheritance. Yes, what this really means is that the trauma that may have happened to people, like in wars, in during concentration camps that were let down, or famines, or something that happened in the generation, can then pass on from one generation to another. This research was done, as I said, by um, Isabel Mensui, and she did this research on the rats. And what they did was they had three kind of rats. On one which were not exposed to any kind of trauma, the other where immediately after birth the pups were separated from the mother, and they were subjected to stress, like they could be put up in the closed tubes where they were not allowed to meet their mother, and the mother also was traumatized by putting her up in the closed tubes. And the other bit of the trauma was, or they were put into the water, and it happened randomly, and it was done for a period of number of days altogether. And they found that if they took the sperms from the male pups and injected those into a normal, a female mice, the pups that were then got by breeding were carrying the trauma the that that the fathers were being subjected to. They had never been, the pups were never being subjected, were never ever subjected to the trauma. They were not got anywhere near the trauma sites, and yet they had, they played up on and they showed the traces of the trauma. What's even more interesting is Isabel Mensoy found that this could go right up till four generations, and she believes that in every generation, it was becoming more intense, because in the first generation when it happened at a certain time, but in the second generation, these pups had it right from birth, right from the sperm and the ova, as you would call it, who carried the traces of this trauma in them. She's also doing further research to find out whether it can go right up till seven generations. And if this was really, really true, her finding, then we can look at how this trauma is, which is happening in one generation. And even though the other people have not really been connected to the same trauma, how our children are carrying our trauma, which makes me believe that if we don't clean up our trauma as parents, then it's quite likely that our traumas will be carried further by our children, who will have to spend years trying to release it or remove this trauma. They also found that if these rats were put up in like a Walt Disney kind of an environment where they were given challenges, where it was fun, it was happy, they found that the trauma could be reduced and the next generation did not carry as much trauma. So the belief is that the therapies, the meta health therapies that we do, the EFTs, the other bit that we are coming up with, and many emotional therapies that are available today, actually do some good by for cleaning these traumas, and so we need to really work on it. I want to give an example over here of this kind of a trauma, which could be very much present in our country from people migrating from Pakistan to India, and what they felt at that time, and how these could be carried in the generations. Also, the example of how, when people were there in the concentration camps in the during the Nazi regime, how the children further who were born much later, like the children and their grandchildren, also carried the trauma. And I personally know of one such case where where the lady's mother had gone through. She's a German lady. The lady's mother went through rape during the World War II. She had to lose. She lost a few children who were killed right in front of her, and to save her children, um, uh, she lived on. She carried them to a house, a German house, where she felt that she may be safe. How her daughter further was subjected to, um, you know, her older gentleman over there started having relationship, and how her daughter got pregnant, and how then this she was basically, the baby was delivered with help of knitting needles, which is really gross. And this lady, this baby which was born, was my client, and she came down with breast cancer, and how her daughter further still carries the anxiety. And interestingly, she wants to make movies on all this, but in black and white, almost connecting with the black and white era that was going on in the black and white TV that was available at that time. So, yes, it's very fascinating how these traumas can be carried through, and something, a thought that we need to look at. We need to look at not just what we are feeling right now, but also dig into the histories, looking into our past of our mom and dad, their mom and dad, and further their mom and dad, and see, could it be possible that what is happening to us, we could release the trauma that they are carrying by doing certain activities, by bringing about emotional releasing techniques, and being free forever, and making sure that our generations further are having a happier life. Thank you so much.
Help Talks are daily health related talks held at Health Education Library for People, Mumbai, India. For more information visit www.healthlibrary.com. Subscribe to Help Talks channel. Be better informed about your health.